Hey folks, Malforian here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're covering the patch notes for Star Trek Infinite. This is 1.0.1. This is our first, I guess you could call it, proper patch. We've had some hotfixes, which have fixed a couple of issues, getting the workshop working and things like that. This is our first proper patch for the game. It isn't that big. I know they said last week, oh, it's going to be a big patch next week. I'm not sure I'd call this a big patch, but it has got some really good fixes in here. It's got some balancing, some bug fixes, and a few other MISC changes as well. As such, I won't be keeping you here very long today, so make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you're new here. We're covering Star Trek Infinite, all its patches, dev diaries, all that good stuff. But let's get into the fixes. So the first thing covered here is just bug fixes. They fixed some sync and save issues. They've changed the default setting to launch the game in borderless full screen, which I'm very happy about. I play basically all my games in borderless full screen. I'm sure most of you do as well. I kind of hate it when games launch in just full screen. If you're playing on Mac, there's two fixes there. Large trade networks fixed and tutorial crash on Mac, which is pretty bad, isn't it? If you're doing the tutorial and it crashes all the time, you're not going to be having a good time at all. And then here we go, our first balance changes. So the node paradigm shift in the Romulan mission tree now requires activating the correct policies. I mean, that just makes sense, doesn't it? So now it actually works as it says. Fix permanent planet modifiers in governor missions. So basically, if your governor left the planet, I'm not sure if every time their modifier stayed on the planet. At least sometimes it did. So they're fixing that so you can't basically stack governor bonuses. I think you could in theory. I've not actually seen it myself, although it might just be I've just not noticed when I've been playing. Fix Societal Studies Tradition Effects issue. It now accelerates by 10% the spy mission progress rate. So I think the next bullet point should actually be part of this one. It now increases the maximum level of spies by +2. So your spies can get better. That's all one fix, I think. And then they fixed opinion loss modifiers for failing a spy mission. And the next is a change that will make a lot of people happy. They're reworking the Nuzcan pirate attacks to make them less aggressive. They won't attack the same place twice in a row anymore. And then they've edited the small ship size, the minimum ship size. And then they've also changed the officers to 90% instead of 100. So that's going to make them less efficient at attacking you anyway. Kind of an interesting change. I guess they can't just put a modifier of some other kind on there. This one kind of makes sense, I guess. I guess lore-wise, you could say they have less officers because they're obviously pirates, so they're not going to have the best officers like the other places have. So I guess it is a cool way to kind of nerf them in a way, and then they can rebalance it quite easily in the future. Aftermath event, the first Borg special project now spawns on a highway node to prevent others occupying the system that makes the event chain unfinishable. Again, this is one I've seen on the Reddit quite a few times where the actual event, the special project, is in like Klingon space and you're the Federation, so you literally just can't do it because you might not be able to get free passage through their space. You might be at war with them, so you literally can't go in to finish the special project. So this is a good change. You could just go to the highway node and then you can get it, so it doesn't really matter at that point where it is. Although hopefully it is a relatively close highway node. You don't want it somewhere miles away, but I guess at least you can reach it if it's on a highway node generally, so quite a good change. Evacuation of Romulus now allows players to obtain From a Dying Star achievement. It is unfortunately not retroactive, so if you have done this, you're going to have to do it again. Fix requirements for the Cardassian Obsidian Order mission node. It now equal or greater number of buildings and missions. So again, it's just kind of fixed how that was working in game. And then failed assimilation now frees the envoys. And the next one to ships. Fixed Romulan reactors. They now output the intended power to all ship sizes. I'm not sure how that gets into the game. Some bug fixes, this is for all games, but especially sometimes in Paradox games, I'm like, how did that get to launch? That Romulan reactors didn't work properly on all ship sizes. It's kind of crazy, but at least it's fixed relatively quickly. And then they fixed both versions of the Enterprise to make them more akin to canon. This results in the ship feeling more authentic and more powerful, so just basically bumping up how good the Enterprise is so it feels a bit better to play. So they've added only phaser and photon torpedo weapons components, added maneuverability, added assisted targeting components, and a shield booster for the E, prioritize shields over armor components, so just making them feel a little bit more like the actual Enterprise and not just like a powerful generic ship. This does kind of lead on to a conversation I do see quite a few places where like, why can each race kind of research items? Why aren't certain things kind of locked behind certain ones? So, you know, you can all get disruptors, you can all get the same kind of phasers. You basically all get the same kind of weapons, and then having to unlock things like photon torpedoes feels a little bit weird in a Star Trek game. I guess they had to kind of keep the Stellaris research system, but some of it is a little bit weird. But I guess if they didn't have it this way, it'd be really stagnant. You basically have the same technology, or you could remove some of them, I guess, and just make technology a lot slower and just unlock, you know, quantum torpedoes and things like that during the time frame. Maybe in the future they'll change it. I can see why they did it this way, but I guess lore-wise, it would make a bit more sense if everyone kind of had their systems they have in the lore, and then maybe potentially you could like steal that tech or, you know, capture a ship and unlock that tech that way or something instead. Potentially, it's not a bug, like I say, it is how it's designed, but maybe they could redo how research works. And then we're on to the next one. We're on to lore, not the character, just lore in the game. Fixed UFP starting president species from human into Vulcan. Kind of weird, it was wrong. Fixed Data's lifespan. They did mention this last week. So as an android, he is now immortal. He's not going to die of old age. Language and localization, just some fixes there, nothing too crazy. UI fixed spy detection messages. Players will now receive a pop-up indicating which country detected it and on which system the detection took place. I think this is to fix, is it the audio thing where it just pops up all the time? I can't remember now the wording it uses, but it just goes off like relatively often and it's just kind of annoying. I guess this is kind of fixing it. You'll just get a pop-up and it will tell you a bit more information. Fixed highlighting a tutorial for play pause. Nothing too crazy, housing and jobs. And then for audio, just some sound effects improvements and some voiceover changes to make it a bit more realistic to the lore. And then modding, fixed modding support in both Steam Workshop and the Paradox Launcher. I think this was actually fixed in the last hotfix, but I guess they've listed it here or done some further fixes. That is it for the first patch. Like I say, they did say it was a large patch last week. I don't think I count this as a large patch, personally. I thought we'd get some other little changes or maybe some free content of some kind. Just, you know, something small, nothing too crazy. But anyway, that is what we've got. And then if you are new to Paradox games, this is one thing you've got to be aware of. If you've played Stellaris, if you've played Crusader Kings or something like that, you'll be well aware how game updates basically break save files if you're not careful. So as I mentioned here, it is not guaranteed that it will work between patches. Now, this isn't that big of a patch, so I'd imagine you'd be fine, but obviously not guaranteed. If you are experiencing issues or if you just don't want to risk it, you can, through Steam, and it goes through the steps here, basically roll your game back to a previous version. It's really easy. It's actually really easy to do on Steam. As I say, you just right-click it, go to Properties, Betas, choose the version. It usually lists them all. If you go to like Crusader Kings, it literally lists all the patches they've done for the most part. And then you just pick which one you want, the game will update back to that version, and then you just play the game as normal. Now, obviously, if you've got mods and things like that that have been updated to the latest version, they won't work. You'd have to theoretically find the old versions, and that's just a big old mess. But if you're like me, you generally play games without that many mods. It is easy to do, and it's something to keep in mind. Like I say, these smaller patches, you're probably not going to have too much of an issue. Once they start getting like DLC, expansions, flavor packs, if that's the road they go down, you will encounter this basically every time. So I always try line up my campaigns to finish before major patches come out if possible, because it is easy to change your version number, but it's also just kind of annoying. I just want to play on the latest version of the game. I don't want to be playing on an old version when the new hotness is out. It is good they've called that out, because if you're not used to Paradox games, you probably wouldn't be aware of this. But anyway, as I said, that's it for today's video. Just covering the first patch we've got. I'm not sure if there's going to be any more news this week, but if there is, I'll be back with that. So as I said at the start, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here. I'm covering Star Trek Infinite and other Paradox games, and I play historical strategy games mostly on the channel. But we'll leave it there for today. I'll see you in the next one.